Welcome back. We are going to continue on with chapter 17. There were no reading comprehension questions after chapter 16, and there are no vocab words for chapter 17. I sat up, dazed and frightened, to find the dark, hooded figure of Falconer crouching over me like some rough beast over its prey. "Where is it?" he demanded in that harsh and hollow voice. I tried to rise. I've been having trouble." He shoved me back. "Trouble? You haven't begun to learn what trouble is. Where is the script?" It was stolen from me wallet by a thief." "The devil take your lying tongue." He snatched his dagger from his belt and thrust it under my chin. "The truth, now." "It's true," I cried frantically. "As true as steel, I swear it." "Then you've made a new copy for me?" "I'm trying." "Trying? You think I haven't watched your comings and goings? You've been at the Globe every day, and you've nothing to show for it?" "I can't do it without being seen." He let out a hiss of disgust and let the tip of the dagger drop an inch or two. Gasping, I rubbed at the spot where it had pricked my skin. "Well," he said, "there's nothing left to do then, but to take the book." "I meant to, but they keep such a close watch on it." "Take it from the trunk. It'll be kept in the property room." "Suppose it's locked?" "Break the lock. I want that script, and I'm accustomed to getting what I want. Have it for me tonight. I'll be waiting. Understood?" I nodded, very carefully in view of the dagger so near my chin. Falconer suddenly lifted the point again and pressed it against my chin. "And mark me, boy. Breathe no word of this to anyone, or I'll cut out your wagging tongue." With that he stood, stepped over the hedge, and was gone. I lay in the grass for some time, my heart clamoring in my chest and my limbs weak as water, before I could compose myself enough to continue on to the playhouse. When I came through the rear door, Mr. Pope was just making an exit from the stage, his face set in a jolly grin required by his role. When he saw me, he resumed his usual gruff expression. "Ah, Widge, you've decided to join us." He shook his head in mock exasperation. "Give a boy a few lines to say and he thinks he owns the theater." As he came nearer, his face took on a look of concern. "Are you well, boy? You look as if you've eaten a batch of bad oysters. Sanders said you'd been upset, but—" "It's not," I said. "I ran too hard getting here, that's all." "There was no need. We can manage without you for an hour or two." "I ken that. I don't like it, though, that I'm shirking me duties." "No one thought that." He lifted my chin. "What have you done to yourself? You're bleeding." "Oh, that. I stumbled and fell into a hedge." Mr. Pope pulled his handkerchief from his sleeve. "Hold that on it. Now, you'll need the morning free to study your daunting part, do you think?" "Will you need it?" I flushed. "Nay, I can speak it well enough." In the practice room, Mr. Armand was strapping a metal plate to Sanders' waist. "Just in time, Widge." Mr. Armand tossed a short sword to me. So shaken was I that I dropped it, drawing a derisive laugh from Nick. "We'll have to practice that," Mr. Armand said, "but for the moment you will all be learning how to die properly." I had come as close to dying as I cared to for one day, but I kept silent and tried to attend to Mr. Armand's words. "We'll be enlisting you prentices for battle scenes soon. Your weapons will be blunted, but there will be no protective tips. So, lest you die too convincingly, you'll wear a metal plate." He tapped the one at Sanders' waist. "It is the responsibility of your adversary to see that he strikes this, and not your gut. Of course, in Nick's case, it may be difficult to avoid." He gave a wry glance at the pronounced belly Nick had begun to develop as a result of his regular carousing. "Now, you'll all have seen the small bladders full of sheep's blood which we use. They are tied flat to the plate, and the point of the sword bursts them. We'll try that another time. For now, pair off and take turns being killer and victim." He handed Julian a metal plate. "You and Widge trade blows, carefully." "Are you sure he's ready for this, Mr. Armand?" Julian asked anxiously as he strapped on the plate. "He'll do well enough. Now, lowward. Dritta, reversa, incartata." I thrust under Julian's single stick. The sword hit the protective plate, but to my astonishment the plate did not stop it. My momentum carried the hilt forward 6 inches. "Oh, God!" I cried. "I've struck him!" But Julian did not appear to be struck. Indeed, he was laughing. It's your sword. It collapses into the hilt. I gaped at him, then at the sword. It's a trick sword? Why didn't you tell me? And miss the look on your face? That's funny. I was afeard I'd slain you, I said sulkily. Julian laid an arm upon my shoulder. I shrugged it off. Come on now, no hard feelings, eh? It was just a jest. We took up our positions again. When I struck Julian this time, he gave a half-hearted groan and clutched at his belly. You look as though you'd eaten too many sweets, not suffered a mortal wound, Mr. Armand said. Trade roles now. Drink properly and stop slurping or stuff, okay? Yeah, I said it. I handed my sword to Julian and strapped on the protective plate. In the school of hard knocks, where I'd become master of dodging, I had also learned to feign injury as a way of lessening the severity of a beating. The experience stood me in good stead now. When Julian struck me, I gave a howl of agony and crumpled to the floor, my face a very picture of pain and terror. Mother Mary, Julian breathed. Are you wounded? I grinned up at him. He gave me an exasperated nudge with one foot. You sot. Very dramatic, Mr. Armand said dryly. No one will even notice the principals. They'll be too busy looking at you. During our rest time, Julian and I sat against the wall, sipping cups of water. Well, he said casually, perhaps you're not such a bad sort after all, for a country white. I stared at him. Is that the London way of giving a compliment? He smiled. I suppose it is. In that case, I suppose you're not such a bad sort either, for a city white. Touch. Your point. So, how do you come to be in London? That's something of a long tale. Just give me a brief summary. I ran away from me master. That's the long and short of it. And your parents? Me mother's long since dead. Me father... I hesitated, and then, seeing Julian's sympathetic look, went on. I don't ken who me father was. Julian nodded. We're birds of a feather, then. I lost my mum when I was small, to the plague, and my da is... He shrugged. Well, my da will die of a dropsy one day, I've no doubt. The dropsy? One of the words we use to mean hanging from the Tyburn tree. Hanging? Why? What has he done? What hasn't he done? You might as well ask. As far as I know, he's never murdered anyone, and I don't suppose he's ever betrayed one of his fellows. Anything else he'll do, if there's money in it. That's why he lets me prentice here. They pay him a small sum yearly. Aye, do you think that... What? Oh, I was just wondering whether me master might be willing to do the same. Let me stay on, and they paid him a bit? You think he'll come after you, then? Aye, I'm afeard he will. I hope he doesn't, Julian said. You're just beginning to show some promise. I felt myself flush. Do you really think so? Julian grinned. Well, if you can feign love or compassion half so well as you can feign an agonizing death, you'll be as famous as Burbage. I've had no experience in such things, I said, but I'm willing to learn. We were kept so busy through the morning that I scarcely had time to dread the afternoon, when I would step on stage and say my 3 lines. Yet the threat of it hung over my head, along with the more dire threat of Falconer out there, waiting for me to deliver the script. An hour before the performance, I was in costume, not wishing to see my dream come true. I paced about behind the stage, muttering, Pedringano, 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 like an incantation. Widge, Sanders said, sit somewhere and practice breathing deeply. I'll call you when you're due on stage. And you forget what then? I won't forget. Nonetheless, I was still unable to sit still. I went on stomping about, repeating my lines and getting in everyone's way, until at last Julian took me by the arm. Come, you're going to help me with my lines for Saturnomastics. It did calm me a bit, having something to do, and Sander was as good as his word, though he got me to the stage with a scant half-minute to spare. Gives you less time to fret, he said. When my cue came, I froze, and he was forced to propel me onto the stage. My actual moment of glory is a blank in my memory. I must have gotten out my lines, Pedringano and all, without disgracing myself or the company, for afterward in the tiring room I was congratulated by the other players as though I had passed through fire, which in a sense I had. I remember well my first faulting steps upon the boards, Mr. Pope said. I had no idea they had boards so long ago, Mr. Armand said. Oh, we knew how to make boards well enough. It wasn't until your time we learned how to make an audience board. There was much laughter. To return to my story, I was given the part of a gluttony in a play called Nature. I was not so well upholstered in those days, so they strapped a sack of buckram about my waist. Halfway through the play, it came loose and descended about my knees, so that I resembled not a glutton so much as a as a pear with legs. I had much the same experience, Mr. Phillips said, save that I was playing a woman, and it was my bosom which had migrated south. I was enjoying the players' tales so much that I neglected to undress and remove my makeup. When everyone else was ready to leave, I was still wiping off my face paint. Want us to wait for you? Sander asked. I hesitated. If I was in their company, Falconer could not accost me again. Yet I could not avoid him forever. He had said I must have the script for him that very night, or... Well, he had made it clear what the alternative was, but I knew it would not be pleasant. Nay, I said, trying to sound casual. Go on without me. I'll be along. When they were gone, I sat staring into the looking-glass as I had seen Mr. Shakespeare do, pondering my dilemma. All my life I had done what I was told to do without question, without thinking about the right or the wrong of it. This time I couldn't help questioning it. I had no doubt what Falconer and my master Simon Bass were asking me to do was wrong. Even a thief, Julian had said, would not betray his fellows. And if I took the script, I would indeed have betrayed my fellows. I had no desire to do so. They had taken me in and shown me kindness and trust and friendship. I had been alone and friendless a long time, and had accepted it as my lot. But in the past weeks I had learned something of what it meant to have friends, to be a real apprentice, not a mere slave. It was a piece of knowledge late to come and hard won, and one I did not wish to forget. Yet I had learned what it means to have an enemy, too. As I scrubbed the makeup from my chin, I wiped the spot where Falconer's dagger had pricked the skin. I flinched. Another piece of hard-won knowledge I did not care to forget, lest it be impressed upon me again, more forcefully and more permanently. I turned away from the looking-glass. I had been contemplating the matter as if I had a choice. The truth was, if I hoped to save my own skin, I had no choice. All right, the question for today is, why is Widge in a moral dilemma over whether he should steal the play?
It was wrong to steal the play, but if he doesn't, he'll die.
Right, but he's less concerned about it morally being right or wrong to steal a play, but rather he doesn't want to
Betray his friends.
betray his friends. A thief doesn't betray his friends, but he could be killed if he doesn't. Even though Bass promised to free him, Widge doesn't really expect this to happen. Do you think Bass would free him?
No.
No, he'd probably want the next play, and then the next, and the next, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. That is all we've got for today. We'll see you next time. Bye.